In a world where superheroes leap off the pages and onto the silver screen, one man stood at the helm of it all. This is the marvelous world of Stan Lee, the untold story. Welcome to Part 1, the origins of a legend, brought to you by Wealthwise84, your treasury of comic trivia. New York City, 1922. The Jazz Age is in full swing, and amidst the hustle and bustle, a hero of a different kind is born. Stanley Martin Lieber, or as we know him, Stan Lee. But before he was Stan the man, he was just Stanley, a kid with a dream and a pencil, doodling away his destiny. Little Stanley was not your average Joe, or Jack, or even a Steve. No, he was something more. A precocious child with a knack for weaving tales taller than the Empire State. With parents who juggled the Great Depression like a pair of circus clowns, Stanley learned that sometimes laughter is indeed the best medicine. Fast forward to the roaring 40s, and our hero lands a job at Timely Comics, not as a writer, but as an office boy. Oh, the glamour, fetching coffee, refilling ink pots, and watching artists doodle destiny. Little did they know, they were schooling Marvel's future maestro. Stanley had a secret superpower, perseverance. With a mantra of Excelsior, he climbed the ranks like Spider-Man up a building. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Imagine writing obituaries as a side gig, talk about a morbid muse, then bam, POW, wham, the golden age of comics. Our man Stan starts scripting stories for Captain America. That's right, folks. Before he was a movie star, Cap was Stan's pen pal. The 50s rolled around like a runaway Hulk, and comics faced a villain worse than any other: censorship. The Comics Code Authority was like the Thanos of creativity, snapping fun out of the panels. But did our hero falter? Not a chance. Stanley, now a writer-editor, soldiered on. It was a time of monsters, romance, and sci-fi, yet it wasn't quite super. Then the 60s swung in, and with it a challenge from Stan's publisher. Outdo those Cape Crusaders at DC. And folks, challenge accepted. Stan teamed up with legends like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. Together they flipped the script on superhero stereotypes. Their heroes were flawed, their villains had depth, and their stories, they had heart. And then, 1961, the Fantastic Four burst onto the scene, a family of heroes not by blood but by bond. And that, dear viewers, was just the beginning. Spider-Man, Iron Man, the X-Men, Daredevil, a universe unfolded from the tip of Stan's pen. And thus the stage was set, a universe of heroes, villains, and everything in between, all from the mind of a man who once wrote obituaries. Funny how life works, huh? But hold your horses, true believers. We've barely scratched the surface. Stan's story and Marvel's have twists and turns that not even Doctor Strange could foresee. So, if you're grinning ear to ear and hankering for more, do what any self-respecting hero would do. Like this video, subscribe to Wealthwise84, and smash that notification bell. Because, as Stan would say, you ain't seen nothing yet. The early 60s, a time of change, a time of spandex. That's right, the fabric of heroes. Stan Lee, along with his band of merry artists, was about to turn the comic world on its head. As Stan himself once said, with great power comes great responsibility. And boy, did they take that to heart. In a bold move, Stan and Jack Kirby unleashed a new breed of superheroes, the Fantastic Four. No secret identities here, just raw, unadulterated family drama. And the world, well, the world loved it. Stan's secret sauce, relatability. He made gods out of men and men out of gods. Take Spider-Man, for instance. Teenage angst, check. Financial woes, check. Girl troubles, double check. Peter Parker was the superhero next door, and everyone was invited to his web-slinging shindigs. But let's not forget the maestro's co-conspirators. Steve Ditko, with a stroke of his pen, brought us the enigmatic Doctor Strange. And don't get me started on Thor. Kirby's pencils practically crackled with the thunder of Asgard. Marvel's heroes were a hit, but what's a hero without a villain? From the mischievous Loki to the brooding Magneto, Stan's rogues gallery was as complex as they come. After all, as Stan put it, the best villain is the one who believes he's the hero of his own story. Stan's writing was revolutionary. He took the comic book medium and elevated it to something that could be enjoyed by kids and adults alike. The Marvel method of storytelling was a game changer. Stan would outline a plot, and then the artist would draw it out, leaving room for Stan's snappy dialogue. It was collaborative magic. But it wasn't just about the stories. Stan understood his audience. He created the Marvel bullpen bulletins and Stan's soapbox to speak directly to the readers. It was like getting a letter from a friend who just happened to create superheroes. By the mid-60s, Marvel wasn't just a comic book company. It was a phenomenon. Stan Lee had become the face of comics, a celebrity in his own right. With his signature shades and mustache, he was more recognizable than some of his characters. And speaking of characters, let's not forget about the ladies of Marvel. From the powerful Jean Grey to the sensational She-Hulk, Stan's heroines broke molds and took names. As Stan said, "For Bush forbid we forget the femmes." So there you have it, folks, the Marvel age of comics. A time of heroes, of villains, and everything in between. A time when a man named Stan Lee reminded us all that there's a little bit of superhero in each of us. If you thought the ride was wild so far, you ain't seen nothing yet. The cultural icon. Here at Wealthwise 84, we're about to show you how Stan Lee went from comic book writer to a titan of pop culture. By the end of the 60s, Marvel Comics had made its mark. But Stan, the man Lee, ever the dreamer, saw beyond the page. He envisioned a world where superheroes lived not just in comics, but on every screen, in every toy box, and in every heart. From the electric pages of comic books to the buzzing static of the TV screen, Marvel's characters began their invasion into homes around the globe. Sound familiar? That's because Marvel was spinning a web across Saturday morning cartoons, and kids were stuck on it. But Stan wasn't content with just ruling the airwaves. He saw the silver screen gleaming in the distance. A few trial runs in the 70s and 80s, and then, bam! The 90s hit, and so did the X-Men, followed by Spider-Man swinging into theaters. And you can bet Stan was there, not just in spirit, but in the flesh. Ah, the cameos. What began as a playful nod to fans became a beloved tradition. From a hot dog vendor to a bus driver, Stan popped up in places you'd least expect. It was like playing Where's Waldo, but with more mustache. A celebrity once said, "Seeing Stan Lee in the movies was like getting a wink from an old friend." It reminded us that behind these epic stories was a man who loved them just as much as we did. A fan once said, "I remember my first Stan Lee cameo. It was like a seal of approval. If Stan was there, you knew it was a true Marvel story." But Stan's influence wasn't confined to fiction. His impact rippled through the real world. He championed diversity and empathy, reminding us that heroes come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Remember Stan's soapbox. It wasn't just a place for updates. It was a platform for change. Stan tackled issues like discrimination and bigotry head-on. He knew that the pen and the superhero could be mighty tools for justice. Stan once said, "The only advice anybody can give is, if you want to be a writer, keep writing. And read all you can. Read everything." And that's precisely what he did. He wrote, he read, he dreamed, and most importantly, he inspired. Enter timely publications, later known as Marvel. It was a time of experimentation, of daring to dream in ink and paper. And amidst this backdrop of artistic revolution, a young Stan Lee began to weave his narrative tapestry. Each panel, each line Stan wrote wasn't just about superheroes. It was a mirror to society. As America marched through wars, civil rights movements, and cultural upheaval, so too did the pages of Marvel Comics. Stan knew that comics could be both a reflection and a beacon, a lighthouse guiding through tumultuous seas. A comic historian once said, "You can't talk about Stan Lee without talking about the context of his times." He saw comics as a powerful medium, a way to connect with the zeitgeist. He didn't just ride the wave of culture, he helped shape it. And so when we see Stan's cheeky grin pop up in movies, we're not just seeing the creator. We're seeing a man who encapsulated an era, who understood the heartbeat of society and translated it into stories that would stand the test of time. In a way, Stan Lee didn't just create characters. He created a lens through which we could view ourselves and our world. Heroes with flaws, villains with depth, stories that challenged and comforted. This was the legacy of Stan Lee, a legacy built on understanding the past, embracing the present, and always believing in the future. If you're feeling heroic and you've enjoyed this journey so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for Wealthwise 84. The story's not over yet. In fact, the best is yet to come. Join us for part 2, where we'll explore the global phenomenon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how Stan's legacy continues to shape our world. This is Wealthwise 84 signing off. Remember, true believers, to always keep moving forward, and in the words of the man himself, Excelsior.